because it's from a Western dude, but it sounds very Chinese. It is more important to know what sort of person has a disease than to know what sort of disease a person has. Sandro's going to love this because I'm a bit of a Hippocrates fan. But what's great about it is that being a Western dude, he's not thinking in the way that modern Western medicine thinks in regards to disease. I mean, sure, there's some reports that say that it's flipping, and I'm not a Western medicine expert. This is very Chinese. It's more important to know what sort of, it's more important to know what sort of person has a disease. So it's very much treating the person, not the disease, isn't it? So part two is very, very quick. It's making sure that you understand how I'm constructing the point combinations that are going to run for the next 4 hours or so. So basically, I'll go through each of those one at a time very quickly. So how I construct combinations takes part the following way. So it all starts with the patient and their presenting condition. And this leads me to ask questions, put a few needles in, I get close to my patient, I'm feeling their energy, that can impact on my treatment, and then I perform the treatment. So very quickly, as soon as my patient mentions their main complaint, I get a list of points that pop into my head. So if they were to say headache, I would straight away go ping, 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 ping. I'd have distal points, local points that just come into my head all the time. If someone said high blood pressure, ping, 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 they might not be the points that I use, but they are points that pop up in my head anyway. I can't help it. It just does it. That's why barbecues are so much fun. You meet new people, people are happy to talk about their disorders, and my brain just goes mental. It just starts popping up with all these points that I could be using for that patient. So that's what starts. And then I keep taking my case study to find out what's going on, and they give me additional signs and symptoms. As soon as I do that, more points pop up into my head. And if the same point pops up a few times, then it gets tucked away in the corner of my brain to be kind of probably analyzed and prioritized as a point I'd probably look at using on them. Then I do the full case history, I do the tongue and pulse diagnosis, and then I get my Zhang Fu pattern. And that pattern gives me points that pop up into my head as well. And then I need to see if all of those points match. So the more times that a point pops up multiple times, the more likely it's going to be one that I use. And then once I start doing some points, as I said, I'm in the person's space a little bit more and I'm feeling their energy, and that energy gives you information. And it's physical touch, it's aura touch, it's touch that's a little bit off the body. Sometimes this freaks people out. They think I'm a hippie, tree-hugging hippie or something. I'm not. I'm an acupuncturist, but that chi is there and you can access it, and the person will give you information with that chi. And sometimes what will happen is that I'll be instructed to not use a point I had in mind, and that in fact use a different point. And that's just something that I do. And I find that to be an incredibly important part of my treatment. Not sure what you do, but that's certainly something that I do. And then I perform my treatment, take the needles out, and as I said, they leave as themselves. So that gives you a sense of what I'm doing as I construct these treatments for you. So as you can see, part two is very, very quick. It is an entire chapter in my point combination book where I go into each of those layers in a lot more detail. But obviously you guys want to get to the treatments and the meaty part of the course. So that's what we're going to do. So moving on to part three, but before we do that, we are going to be talking about part three is Heart Shen and emotions. So here's another perfect quote, once again from a Western dude. How much more damage anger and grief do than the things that cause them? So very quickly, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. And what's interesting is that he struggled in life. He wasn't happy all the time. And he was trying to understand why he shouldn't be happy all the time. He's the emperor of Rome. He's got more money than he knows what to do with. He can do whatever he wants every day, really. so why shouldn't he be the happiest person on the planet? Well, it turns out that he wasn't. And so when he realized he wasn't, he went, well, why is that? So he hit the philosophy books, read about them, and then wrote some stuff down himself. And it's fascinating. What's fascinating about it is it shows that just because you're rich doesn't mean that everything you want you can get. And that was a very defining feature in history, that people thought that if you were rich, you had everything you wanted, and that if you're poor, then you had every right to feel emotional because you didn't have everything you wanted. So Marcus Aurelius, another guy called Seneca 100 years before him, showed that if you're rich didn't mean that you weren't still suffering from emotions just like everyone else. So part 3, we're going to look at the Heart Shen. Again, you might know about this stuff, but we also got a point combination example and a little bit from Confucius and Mencius about the Shen. And then we get into the emotions as well. And what we're going to talk about today are the emotions that are geared towards men's and women's health. So it's not all the emotions, but it's the ones that tend to occur more often. So Heart Shen. So basically our Shen is our memory, everything about our memory. It's our consciousness. It's everything related to sleep. It's all of our emotions. That's worth probably remembering. The Heart Shen governs all of our emotions and not just joy. And it also governs all of our 5 spirits. And even though Shen is one of the 5 spirits, it still controls and looks after and assists the other 4. The Shen gives the orders that precipitate each human life, but the Shen also gives us our heavenly mandate or our individual destiny. So this is on the assumption that we are born to live a certain life. And if you don't believe that, that's perfectly okay. It is one of the ways that certain Chinese philosophies believed you were on the earth for. So if you were born into a farming community, then you should be the best farmer that you could possibly be. If you're born into a higher, if you're, say, an academic family, then you would become an academic. And so everyone had a role, everyone had a job in ancient China. And if everyone did those jobs really well, then the Chinese economy functioned well. And so this was something that was very important to them. So this is very much a historical sort of look, that you're born into your skin to live a certain life. I'm born to be an acupuncturist, that's what I'm doing. And I'm supposed to be doing it. And that this life potentially has been planned out for us, and that's our destiny. So this destiny is actually housed in the heart, in the Shen. And so you could use the Shen to treat a patient that feels they've lost their way in life, or they don't understand why they're even on the planet. You could treat the Heart Shen to potentially trigger a movement, a shift. And I don't have time to go through this now, but I had a patient that was very much like that, and it completely flipped her. And it's extraordinary where she is today. She was in a job she didn't want to be in, but she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. And treating her Heart Shen, it stimulated and triggered this shift in her. And she's absolutely brilliant now. It's extraordinary and amazing to see. Yeah, so if the patient felt like there was no point to life, or there should be more to life, they weren't living the life they were meant to, or even had no reason for living, then you could treat the Heart Shen. So someone that was severely depressed for those reasons, you might target the Heart Shen rather than perhaps some other diagnosis. So most of all, the presence of healthy Shen results in a life that is uniquely suited to the individual and a person whose actions make sense within the context of the surrounding environment. I love that book from Laurie Deschar. It's just fantastic. It's the 5 Spirits book. Laurie Eve Deschar, I think it's her middle name. Now, in regards to Confucius and Mencius, they actually spoke about the heart as well. And this preceded our own understanding of what Chinese medicine is in this day and age. Because when they were writing this stuff down, Chinese medicine was probably more like ancestor worship and trying to not be invaded by demonic beings. So what they're saying here is that the heart was very, very important. So Mencius believed that people are born good, and this goodness is housed in the heart. And what I like about that is it's saying then from a Chinese medicine perspective, we could treat the Heart Shen to stimulate our inherent goodness. Doesn't that sound interesting? It's potentially helping someone to go back to the grassroots, like go back to base level. And underneath all of the crap that may have piled up on top of their underlying goodness, maybe made them feel not so good, or maybe made them not such a nice person. That if you can strip away the layers by treating the Heart Shen, you can bring them back to that inherent goodness. He also talked about that if you lose your heart, you lose your sense of purpose, destiny, and your connection to heaven. And so because you lose your destiny, you actually fill that space with desires. So worldly sensory attractions, which means that you fall away from the way you're supposed to be living, the right way of living. This is basically saying what I said. If we treat the heart, it'll help to give us, to help us to govern one's life better, to put us back in our destiny rather than keeping us scattered out in our desires everywhere. So I am conscious of time here. I have a little sheet beside me that's sort of keeping me focused on what the time is and where I need to be. And again, I'm conscious that you probably want to get to the treatment. So what can happen with the Shen is it can go excess or deficient, or it can be normal. If it goes excess, you're either harmless or dangerous. So if you're harmless, you're the life of the party. You're funny, engaging, loud, energetic, extroverted, keen to ensure everyone is having as good a time as you are. You'll be louder than everyone else in the room. You'll be more energetic than everyone else in the room. You'll fling your arms around more than anyone else in the room. You'll laugh more than anyone else in the room. And you'll probably laugh at things that probably aren't even all that funny. But they are absolutely hysterical people, but they're very exhausting people to be around because they are huge energy generators. But because they're using up energy, they suck energy from their environment. So they can leave you feeling a little bit fatigued, even if they didn't mean to do that. They're the kind of ones that, you see in some of the classics that have been translated, where the discards clothing and runs around, climbs to high mountains and sings. These types of things. They wouldn't hurt a fly. But the other one that's excess is not that. They are dangerous, manic, aggressive, psychotic, and violent. And they have a sensory perception issue. So what's happening there is that all their senses aren't working properly, probably because they're all fogged up. So phlegm, heat coming up into the head. So they see things that didn't happen. They hear things that weren't said, this type of stuff. So they are very, very dangerous people, and they don't have a moral compass. So that's the other type of Shen excess. If the person's Shan deficient, they're quiet, withdrawn. They used to be energetic and excitable and loved life, but now they don't. And this is something they don't like, and they will actively try to get out of it. And they can either actively do it by taking stimulants, which will briefly poke them back out of the deficiency, or they'll actively get treatment to try to help them get out of it. So they'll probably be a good patient for you because they have invested interest in their own health. Some patients come in and they just want you to fix all their problems, but they don't want to do anything about it themselves. It's likely that the Shan deficiency patient is going to be very proactive in their health. Now, what about if we just want to regulate the Shen? So if we're excess or deficient, we might want to be a bit more specific than this. But if they're only a little bit excess or a little bit deficient, this is a regulating treatment. So it will bring down excesses and it will bring up deficiencies. So this is a treatment that can do that. It's a face-up treatment. And you could use, say, do 20 or do 24 plus yin tang. You could do all three of those needles if you wanted to. That's fairly powerful in the head, though. So I'd probably be more inclined to choose do 20 in yin tang, or do 24 in yin tang, or even do 20 and do 24. And then I really love this combo, Ren 14, 15, and 17. So Ren 14, 15, and 17. 14 is the front mood point of the heart, and 15 and 17 calm the Shen. 17 is the front mood point of the pericardium, and the pericardium is the protector of the heart, isn't it? So, but when you look at it, pericardium for me is kind of like a bit of a boring name. And if you look at it from a pinyin perspective, your heart is called Shin, X-I-N, and your pericardium is called Shin Bao, heart's embrace. It's a much more beautiful name for pericardium, heart's embrace. So it's a physical wrapping of the heart, and it's a spiritual wrapping of the heart. And when you look at the pericardium, you will hear things from the classics where they talk about the heart being, the pericardium being the heart's bodyguard. But there's also, from the classics, they talk about the pericardium being the court jester to make the heart laugh, be joyful. So it's a physical bodyguard protector, but it's also a spiritual one to help the heart to feel jolly and merry. And Ren 15 I love for Shen. I call it like my unofficial front mood point for the Shen. So 14, 15, and 17 all together is only 3 needles. I do like them all together in this instance, and they'll merge really well with the do 20, do 24, and yin tang. And then you round it off with some points on the arms that are going to match that. Pericardium 6, heart 3, 5, and 7, or any other little variety of heart and pericardium points that you like for a Shen regulating. And there's no reason why you couldn't add in some points on the legs, or change this up and do a face down treatment instead. You'd have to leave a few points out, but you could add some points into the back, of course. So what are some points on the legs that are good for Shen? Well, I mean, spleen 6 is very, very good, just as one example. Another good Shen calming combination is opening the 4 gates. So you could do large intestine 4 and liver 3 to open the 4 gates. That's a very calming treatment. So that's one possibility.